I know you didn't expect to see me today, but I wanted to take this opportunity to tell my friends and family what a blessed life I've had. And I've just, due to modern technology and a granddaughter who can put this all together, I wanted to let you know what a blessed life I've had. Now, I've had a wonderful wife for over 60 years. In fact, we've just celebrated our 63rd wedding anniversary. And today is December 14th, 2011. And my wife and I, we've traveled a lot. We've worked together. We've done a lot of things. And she's given me 4 fine sons, which when I shut up, each one of them will say a little bit about their dad. And the one thing I wanted to really say is how I've lived my life. George Bernard Shaw did a lot of writing and said some things that I thought pertained to me, at least the way I lived my life. And I want to tell you what that is. He said, and I quote, "I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no mere brief candle to me. It is a sort of a splendid torch, which I've got to hold up for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." Now, each of our 4 sons, who we were so proud of, we will say a few words about me. And right now, I am having a great reunion with Zachary and all my friends who've gone and family who've gone before me. And I'm going to leave it with that and let my sons take over from here.
Don't mind the raindrops, wait till the rain stops. Smile through your tears, laughing at life. No road is no...
My father, when I was young, I saw him at the end of the day and sometimes at noon, but he was in and out because he was working an incredible number of hours. In the early part of my life, he played, I think, a more symbolic role. And if Kip and Brian and I were fighting, at the end of the day when he got home, then we knew he got to play the disciplinarian because Mom would report. I really didn't get to know my father a lot until I think I was probably 10 or so and old enough to work or get involved in athletics in such a way that he would always show up for my swim meets and that sort of thing. So clearly Mom played the more dominant role in the very early years, and then as each of us became older, then he would play a more significant role through particularly work.
My father's personality. It's not totally unlike what it is today. I mean, he's one of these unchanged human beings, kind of out of control, highly energetic. He's Mr. Affirmation, Mr. Enthusiast. I've always kind of seen him as one who is open to anyone, friendly, high energy, certainly sees himself as a provider and supporter of his family. Very likable human being.
My father, Doran W, he must have struggled with memory after 2 names. So when he would introduce me, we'd go around and he would start going through the list. You know, they'd say, "Who am I?" And he'd go, "Well, Michael, Kip," and then he'd go, "Number 3. And so I became number 3. And over again, I was introduced and frequently referred to as I'm number 3 son.
Of course, when I was real little, you know, Dad was that work a lot. Some of the early memories I remember just like about when I was about 5 years old, that's when they started remodeling the house and putting in the swimming pool. Once the swimming pool got put in and the whole house got remodeled, and like I said, I was like 5 or 6, so that's when your memories start sinking in a little better. Dad, worked with me on swimming, and of course, Dad was that time, he was really big into the skin diving and things, and they got me learning how to swim with a mask on my face before I could really, because I didn't like the water. Most kids don't like the water, so of course Dad put a mask on me and Finn, so I swam forever with a mask on my face.
Dad played a very significant role, certainly in my life, and his role was really the role of stretching the boundaries, of pushing the limits, of adventure. And for a while, I always suspected that he just had a huge death urge. And I've since come to understand that I think it was not so much a death urge as just therapy for the incredible and challenging marathon that he was always running in regards to work. I mean, he'd get up very early in the morning to go make ice cream. As I recall, 4:30, 5 in the morning he was working, and then many nights he'd be working until midnight or 1 o'clock, particularly on hot summer nights, to run the business. And he might get a little break in the afternoon, come home, take a nap or whatever, but he was working. That's what he did. He worked.
So much of our life was centered around the family business, the Penguin. It wasn't like I'd say, hey Dad, what days am I going to work this week? It's every day you're going to work.
For you I know I'd even try to turn the tide, because you're mine, I walk the line.
Being the son of Doran May, birthdays take on extra significance because that's the day you pass out ice cream cards. So we always had 10-cent free gift at the Penguin, and he would always load me up with a big supply. On my birthday, I'd get permission from the teacher and then walk around and pass out the free ice cream cards. And it was really pretty cool because everybody loves ice cream. Everybody loves something for free. And also, it's a chance for me to become instantly popular with people that may or may not already like me.
Then going down to the Penguin and seeing him down there working, spending some time down there and, doing some of the work and sweeping the lot things and that kind of stuff and having him work down there.
And yet, there was this other side of our father that was a wild adventurer. As you may know, he was one of the first people in southern Indiana to become involved in scuba diving, and this was shortly after the aqualung was invented. He had a wild mentor who was always doing crazy pioneering things, and he taught Dad how to scuba dive, and there was an instant connection.
Wild thing, I think you move me.
He was one of the pioneers in scuba diving here in the Midwest, and we used to go scuba diving in quarries and strip mines and lakes.
Scuba diving was a significant preoccupation with my father. He was, among other things, a certified instructor, which was pretty cool credentials. And Dad was kind of like the guru of the skin diving community in Bloomington.
People would call him up because they've lost something, their boat tipped over, something like that. So Dad always would, yeah, I'll go get it for you, I'll charge you $10 or whatever it might be, just because that gives Dad an excuse to go get away and go skin diving for the day, and getting people's false teeth, rings, tackle boxes, whatever it might be that fell out of the boat at the time that it tipped over and those type of things. And Dad was always helping other people, and I guess there was time when he had to go place, charges and, explosives and stuff down around Lake Monroe's dam. And in the fire department, Dad had the only air compressor that filled air tanks. And so that when there was a bad fire and the firemen were using the air tanks to get in through the fires, Dad would sit down there all night filling air tanks for the fire department. So, again, he was always helping people.
He developed quite a reputation, quite a following. Anyone who wanted to get into the sport of skin or scuba diving, they came to Doran. So even the guy who currently directs the Indiana University scuba program, which has done a lot of pioneering research and exploration down in the Caribbean and Central America, he was trained by Doran May. So I grew up under that kind of adventure, but it wasn't just scuba diving, it was also spelunking. What we would do is we'd go out and crawl around in the many caves in south central Indiana, and of course Monroe County, as I understand it, has more caves than any other similar sized geography on the planet. Dad would love to take the Cub Scout troop or the Boy Scout troop or whoever would show up to go crawl through these caves, and it was always a great adventure. And then of course when I got older, it was motorcycles. And we would race the motorcycles through the woods of what now is the Hoosier National Forest. But every weekend and more often if possible, we would head off to the woods with our bikes and that sort of thing.
Certainly riding motorcycles with him, and in those days we did what was called trail riding, going out old fire trails with motocross motorcycles and those kinds of activities, very strong in my memory.
He did the motorcycle deal for a while, and he rode his motorcycles around, and that was always, as a little kid, a father that rides a motorcycle is always kind of neat, and he liked, going to trail riding and stuff, and that was when Lake Monroe first opened up out there in the Hoosier National Forest, and they kind of let everybody go running around out there until the environmentalists kind of started going, well, let's tearing up everything with all the motorcycles and four-wheel drive people and all that kind of stuff, so they kind of put a stop to it for a while. But then when it first opened up, Dad was gone and Mike was going out there too and stuff, and Kip, but they ended up finding a couple of these old hermit guys, Roscoe and Eli Hayes, and those kind of stories about them coming up, meeting them and things.
So he was a great adventurer. That's certainly what I remember and made a huge impact. And these salvage dives, when I was old enough, when I got to be a teenager, I would accompany Dad on these weekend events. And sometimes these large digger chains, which would go down into the river, the White River, which is, they'd lower these many-ton pieces of steel, and they would churn up the mud and whatever on the bottom, and these would go down 30, 40 feet into the river and these gravel pits. Nonetheless, every now and then, one of the cables on those would break, and this multi-ton piece of steel would go down and get sunk into the mud on the bottom. Well, they would call Doran to come reattach a cable so they could lift this thing up. There was utterly no romance involved. This was just pure fear. And yet it was a great, terrifying adventure. And once I began to figure out what was going on, I mostly went along, not for the adventure, but just so that someone would be there to bring my father's body back. That was my primary understanding of why I was even going, because no one else would be there to do it. But it was great because I had a chance to, at least in my mind, encounter death on a regular basis, or the opportunity for death. But that was the kind of adventure that our father was always exposing us to, and made a huge impact, but also reveals there was something therapeutic that happened, I think, in his life from the mundane work. Let's go out and stare death in the face. Let's go out and have an experience which gets the adrenaline at a very high level in a cave, or at the bottom of a dark riverbed, or in the bottom of a quarry hole, or let's go see how fast we can ride our motorcycles up this hill or through this woods. And suddenly it provided a nice balance for everything else that was happening in our lives.
He also had this annual trek to Florida. His mother lived there. They'd always go scuba diving in the ocean. I wasn't quite old enough to join them on all those deep sea adventures, but he was always doing that every year. I would get dropped off with my grandmother, but that was all right at the time. I share something in common with my father that most people do not know about. My father and I each had the same first grade teacher. No, not at the same time. About 25 years apart, maybe 26 years apart, but we had the same first grade teacher. And my first grade teacher's name was Mrs. Oliver. I know it when you're at that age. Teachers and adults might appear to be significantly older than they really are, and I was sure that she was in her 80s at the time. Maybe she was only in her 60s. I'm not really sure. But we're having a conversation on the first day of school, going around classroom, everybody introducing themselves, and I tell her that my name's Brian May, and she looks at me and smiles, and she says, "Are you Doran May's boy?" I said, "Well, yes, I am." And she says, "I had Doran in the first grade so many years ago." And well, that continued past first grade. I'm living in Bloomington, Indiana. Frequently, we would go to a restaurant or a store, anywhere. I'd be with maybe my mother, maybe with my father. People would look at me and they'd always say, "Oh, you're Doran May's boy." I'd say, "Yes, I am." And it would happen often enough that I started getting used to it, so I could never escape it, and on and on. So I always had that brand that I was Doran May's boy.
As I came along, as I got a little bit older, 8, 9, most of my brothers were starting to get, almost driving and moving on and doing other things. So Dad tried to spend more time with me on trying to make some time, and Tuesday was our day. We tried to do Tuesday days. We'd go fishing, or he eventually started getting me where I could go skin diving with him, where we went to some of the strip pits and fished. And later, as we got a little bit older, and all my brothers moved out, we had a few just family vacations of Dad and Mom and me, and because everybody else was gone, and I was the one left. So in the long run, from about 12 years old up, I was almost an only child in some sense of the matter.
My father was a great and is a great salesman, and I never had any particular love of sales or marketing, and no particular interest certainly in pursuing that path. I could think of 100 more noble things to do with my life, but the truth is I've become my father. I've become the salesman and the marketeer that he always was and that I was exposed to, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm confident that it's both somewhere in the genes, but certainly also in the example. And the other thing about Dad is he had just such a great common touch, which my grandfather also had, his father. But it's that common touch that I'm probably the weakest link in regards to having that or understanding it, but certainly I've been able to exercise that in the business world, and I've appreciated that.
We were always a pretty clean, wholesome family. We grew up as Methodists. I'm not sure we ever did anything that John Wesley would disapprove of. There was never anything like gambling, alcohol, cigarettes in our house. Believe me, I looked for it all through every room through my teenage years. It just wasn't there. He was certainly is a steadfast human being. I'm sometimes described as someone steadfast, reliable, and I would certainly attribute part of that to the influence of my father. To this day, if he says he'll be there at 10 o'clock, he'll probably be there at 9:45, and you can count on it, like the sun.